Oh,
So I changed it all.
okay.
To do a piece of program.
We're live and we're live streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. And our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Brett Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that the agenda for the regular council meeting held May 10th, 2022 be approved as, are there any amendments?
No, there are not.
So be approved as presented. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Carried. Is there any interest by any member of council on any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll note that in minutes. Have a motion moved by Nikki Gowdy and seconded by Brett Cameron. For the minutes of the regular council meeting held April the 26th, 2022, be approved as presented. That the minutes of the special council meeting held May the 3rd, 2022, be approved as presented. Are there any amendments or discussion on the minutes? None. All those in favor? Carried. Mayor's remarks. I just have a few remarks to talk about tonight. One is this morning, Kathy and Tom and I had coffee with the cops at the Cardinal Cafe. We had the staff sergeant and the community liaison person and the person that goes to the crisis, if there's a crisis calls, that she goes along with them, and the constable that goes to the school and does communications with Greg. So, and there's one other person there, I'm not sure what that role was. It was great. It was just informal, talking about any issues we had, talking about what their jobs are like, and it was a good PR. And CTV News was there and interviewed the staff sergeant and myself, of course. So whether or not we'll be on the news tonight, I don't know. But
Actually, I was there too, Frank, but you were busy with the news people.
I'm sorry.
I was going to go figure
Right over and right beside you.
She wasn't sure if it was going to be on the news tonight. It's CTV Ottawa, so it depends on, I think, the next.
Yes, Johnson.
Yeah,
Stephanie?
she handles the.
Yes, very nice.
Yes.
Nice. And also, the staff and council today are supporting the Health Fund life-saving equipment for breast cancer. And if you wear denim, you can pay some money and sign up on the sheet, and it will be donated. And there's a number of donations happening. Who has sheets on besides me? Here's the sheet. We'll pass it along.
You can also do it without having.
That's true. It's for the next time we write down. The other thing that I'd like to mention is Family and Children's Services of Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington are recruiting for board members. And typically, Frontenac County has not had anyone on this board. So if you know of anybody that might be of interest, the meetings are by Zoom now, so it doesn't involve a lot of travel. So please encourage them. Kathy's going to put this up at the township office. And you can also call Louise Moody if you have questions, because they have it up at their office as well. So it'd be really good if we could get somebody to represent our rural communities on this board. That would be that too. Other than, the swim program, we need to announce that we have not been able to find instructors this year. So the swim program that people were registering for, we're now returning their funds. The program is not going to run. And I think that's all that I have. Does anyone else have anything to mention or bring up? Cindy, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the Kennebec Recreation Committee will be having a fireworks display on the May 24 weekend. So that would be May 21st, and it's at dusk. Everyone's welcome to come.
That email did come around, and Facebook as well. There's also some vendor markets coming up in Henderson and in Parkland. The big May 24th weekend is coming. The black flies are out, they're ready to go.
Actually, the vendor, one for District 4, the District 4 rec committee is going to be this weekend. So, and it'll be at the party fairgrounds.
Good. Okay. All right, we'll move on then to no deferred items. So we are at staff reports. And the first is Andy. I have a motion moved by Brett and seconded by Nikki that council receive the construction details report, April 2022 for information. Looks like we're off to a busy start, Andy. Any questions or comments from anyone? All those in favor? Carried. Has our new person started yet?
Night,
24.
24th of May.
Yeah.
You're taking some holidays before.
Yeah.
Good for you. I think the only way you get something.
Yeah.
Okay, moved by Phil Smith and seconded by Brent Cameron. Whereas a request for tender RFT FA 2021-01 was released on March 30th, 2022, with the closing dates of April 8th, 2022, for the replacement of the roof on Mount Royal Hall. And whereas the manager of development services CBO has reviewed the bids and has evaluated them according to the criteria in the RFT and is recommending to award Wise Choice Contracting as the successful bidder or contractor. And whereas the lowest bid was approximately 4,000 over the amount allocated in the 2022 budget. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the manager of development services and award the contract to Wise Choice Contracting in the amount of $34,000 plus HST. And further that the manager of development services be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. Discussion? Prices are up all over this year, I guess. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Get it back, Paul, moved by Cindy. Seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas a request for tender RFT FA 2022-02 was released on March 30th, 2022, with a closing date of April 8th, 2022, for the replacement of the ramp at the Kennebec Community Hall. And whereas the manager of development services has reviewed the bids and according to the criteria in the RFT and is recommending to award Wise Choice Contracting as the successful contractor. And whereas the lowest bid was approximately $20,000 over the amount allocated in the 2022 budget. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the manager of development services and award the contract to Wise Choice Contracting in the amount of $94,675 plus HST. And further that the manager of development services be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. Discussion? Tom?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support this recommendation of staff. And the only thing I wanted to ask was, what's the estimated time of completion of this project?
Through your worship to Councillor Dewey, I've asked for the project to be completed by the end of 2020.
Interfere with the library and the hall usage over the summer. Yeah. And it's the whole ramp across the whole front of the building.
Yeah, the entire ramp, it's going to be, right now there's two ramps. It's going to be consolidated into one. And there's also drainage issues with the hall. We're going to try to address those while they're excavating that side of the building.
Good. So that could be why it's a little over our budget too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Office renovation. Moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Brett Cameron. Whereas a request for tender RFT FA 2022-03 was released on March 30th, 2022, with a closing date of April 28th, 2022, was a renovation at 1094 Elizabeth Street, Harvey Barber Shop, And whereas the manager of development services has reviewed the bids and determined the bids are higher than the budgeted amount for this project, and therefore is recommending that the scope of work be negotiated with the contractor with the lowest bid, which is Jones Contracting and Building Service. And whereas in addition to the renovation work, office furniture, equipment, and IT services will need to be installed at an approximate cost of $25,000. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the manager of development services to renegotiate the scope of work with Jones Contracting Building Services to keep the total cost of the renovations, furniture, and equipment to less than $180,000 plus HST. Bill?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, just maybe a general question. These costs are a little higher than we anticipate, but in actual fact, they're a lot lower than the original addition to the administration office. Am I correct in surmising that?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor McDonald, it is substantially lower than the addition was going to cost, but it is a smaller space as well.
Tom?
I've been reading the report. I believe that if we get everything that was in there, it would take us up to 194,000. But going up to the 180,000, we're still going to be short in doing some of the work. With the costs going up, I think I would recommend that we put another 14,000 to bring up to 194,000 to get all the work done, because you're saying you're 180, but you're going to have to squirrel some of these jobs around and you won't get it finished. So it's only another 14,000 I think we should take a look at, and I would strongly recommend us going another 14,000 up to 194.
Or what if Andy came back to us if we needed more?
Well,
There's got to be.
from my reading of the report, I believe there are some cuts that are going to be made to this thing, and it's not going to get completed the way that it should be done at this time. Am I right in saying that?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Dewey, the biggest cost savings would be the front of the building there. I had asked for anodized aluminum commercial windows and doors to be installed. And to cut costs, I was gonna eliminate the door to the meeting room, leave the two smaller existing windows as is, and go with a steel door and frame for the front entrance to the building. The inside would basically function the same. It's just some of the exterior work is what I was going to
Can that exterior work be?
It'd be disruptive to anybody working in there if we were to start opening walls up down the road, so.
But the building inspectors are all out on the road anyway.
Yeah.
Victor and then Brett.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. In my reading of the report, the things that you are proposing to cut are things that were not really necessary to the functioning of the building. So that front door into the meeting room was really not necessary because there is an exterior door at the back. So that meeting room can still be accessed from outside, not.
That's correct. You just have to go around the back of the building, or you could come in the front door and walk through the office to get to it.
Right, so that exterior door would have been a convenience, but not a necessity.
That's correct.
A steel frame door or anodized aluminum is a convenience, not a necessity. Changing windows would be a convenience, an aesthetic convenience, but not a necessity.
Yeah.
So the cuts that I saw, I thought really don't change the functioning or the safety of the building. And if we can save money by doing that, then I think that's what we need to do.
Great.
Thank you, Madam. I would agree that it probably is best to enter into negotiations, because at the end of the day, I trust that in those negotiations, we're not sacrificing anything which is absolutely necessary. And again, taking Councillor Hayes' point, there are things that might be on a wish list, and they may not be integral to the work being done. And if they're not going to enhance the work being done in this workspace, and they're not integral to what we're trying to do, I don't think that there's a problem with having a conversation. And again, at the end of the day, I trust that there is a line in the sand we're drawing where we're not going to be cutting the bone, we're just cutting the fat.
Tom, did you have something else?
Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing that I'd say is that with costs going up, we're talking another 14,000 to do the job right here. And I think if we put it off to another year, and then Andy feels that this front is necessary to make that building look proper and to do the thing right, I think for 14,000, I'd strongly recommend that we do it now, not put it off because it's going to cost us a lot more.
Okay, the motion as, sorry, go ahead.
A question. My understanding from the report was not that these things were going to be put off, that they were just going to be cut from the project. It's not that we're going to put them off and then have to go back at it again next year. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes, that's correct. I was hoping to get all of this work done within the budget that I had, but with the cost of material and labor, it just wasn't possible. So I thought cutting those, the windows and doors are, that they would be nice to have, but they really aren't an absolute necessity to make the space work.
Okay. All right, so that is the motion that's in front of us, is with those things cut.
That's correct.
So I'm going to ask for a show of hands, who's in favor of this motion? Who's opposed? Motion's carried. If that lots of costs and work that in, by all means, maybe the price is fair, we'll come down.
Thanks, Council.
And always hold, right?
Yep.
No way, how it works. I have a motion moved by Brett Hammond, seconded by Andy Gowdy, that council receive the public activity report as prepared by the public works manager, dated May 10th. Any questions or comments for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tyson, I thought during budget talks that the wheeled excavator, you had already kind of made a deal of renting it for a year with the option of purchasing it. So I don't understand the comment about the low number of bids. Maybe you could clarify that, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Gowdy, the wheel excavator was tendered, even though we asked for a rent-to-own option from the 2022 budget discussions, it still made sense to tender the project to make it fair to suppliers. Only one bid was received. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I can expand on that a little bit. It should have been to this meeting, but we are entering, since we only got one bid and it's from a local supplier. I can't give away too much information about it yet, but since it's from a local supplier and it is the excavator that we've actually had an opportunity to test drive, because Stone Mills let us try it out. We're no longer as interested in the rent-to-own program, since we would lose 10% of that rental cost would be lost to, because that's the way the tender was set up. We are putting feelers out to the contract, to the supplier right now, to see if we could be presented with some kind of more like a lease option where the interest would be more like 4 or 5%, and we wouldn't lose that 10%. Since we already know we don't need that trial period, since we already know we want that excavator. So that will be coming to the next meeting.
Bill?
You, Madam Mayor, just for comment in regard to the public works activity report. I was on the Tucson Road the other day. The public works department has done an excellent job with ditching, cutting rock off and that sort of thing. I was really quite impressed. I want to pass on my congratulations to the public works department. Thank you.
The one thing that I see a lot of, because I live on a very windy country road, is the trees that are bent over, leaning out, that are caught up on another tree, and at some point, the next windstorm is gonna bring them down. I know you don't have time, but I'm sure everybody's thinking one day they're gonna fix those.
We,
I think it every time I go past.
I actually, I'm surprised that I haven't got many calls about that. We got a call on Oak Flats Road the other day about one, and I think we got to it within a couple days. It was out of our realm, so we had the RTR tree service do it. And they did an excellent job and responded really quick. But everybody, counselors, just get the word out to the public to let us know where they're at, and we can always find time, especially because those are the ones that are safety hazards, so.
One day the wind's gonna blow them off the tree they're leaning against, and they're gonna be across the road.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question on the motion to accept the report. All those in favor? Here. Moved by Cindy Kelce, seconded by Tom Dewey, that council received a report titled Okra Conference as prepared by the Public Works Manager for information. Comments? Bill?
I've been to many good road conferences, and I've never written up such a good report as this one. Very well done. So learning experience for everyone. Thank you.
Excellent. There's always something to be learned at those, if not the conference itself, from the people you're talking to in coffee breaks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank council and Madam Mayor for allowing Public Works to attend that. It was the first time Public Works supervisor's been allowed to attend, and the networking that was created from those couple days has already been pretty incredible. It's helped him gain relationships with not just our neighboring townships, but extended even past that. And it's actually, this is some exciting news because of some of that networking. I think it's because of that, but we've actually been asked to host a District 8 meeting with all the road supervisors and managers from this region in Eastern Ontario. And it's in the works right now to try to organize it, to have it up at the hotel. So that'd be really something really cool for our community.
That hasn't been here in years.
Actually, it's in this hall years ago.
Yeah. So the hall was, we thought that we would host it since their OGRA or District 8 pays for it. We were gonna host it in the hotel, and I've approached them, and it sounds like it's gonna work out. So I owe that to Steve and his networking, and yeah, it's a really good opportunity.
Excellent. Good stuff. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Great. Private lanes, moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy, that council received a report entitled Naming of Private Lanes, Echo Lake Ridge and Ironwood Ridge, as prepared by the Public Works Manager for information, and further that the proposed bylaw be passed later in the meeting to amend bylaw number 2002-125 to add Echo Lake Ridge and Ironwood Ridge to the schedule of said bylaw. Questions or comments? Nice names, I like those. All those in favor? Carried.
That's administration.
It is.
I'm still in on it.
Okay. Do you have anything for us before you leave?
No, thank you, council. I just wanted the opportunity to thank you for the Ontario Good Roads Conference.
You're welcome. All right. We have a motion moved by Phil Smith and seconded by Mr. Bates that council approve in principle the recommendation of the city clerk to close part of the unopened road allowance between intersections 6 and 7, Olden, south of Long Lake, as applied for by Kerry Fortier, and that we proceed to a public meeting to close the said road allowance before passing the bylaw. Discussion. Tom.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to this road allowance at to Long Lake, is there ever, do you think there will ever be a need that we would need access to that lake for launching a boat? I hate giving up, these right of ways to a lake when. No, this particular this particular spot, but it looks to me like it could be important for people watching both, but I don't know the area, so is that something that, and I don't even know what the topography there is like. Is that something that'd be impossible to put a boat launch down there anyway?
Yeah, through you, Councillor Dewey or through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey. The road allowance is quite, like further south, it's basically through a very wetland. There's no public road access that I think that you could ever sort of make along the road allowance. The only access is through private land on either side. There's 2 private rights away. But the road allowance itself, there's quite a wetland just to the south of where they're asking to buy that. I don't think you'd ever be able to have any public access.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. All right, any more questions or comments? All those in favor? Moved by Nate Garrett, seconded by Greg Cameron. Whereas council passed resolution 106/2022 on March the 8th, 2022 to proceed with an easement request over the KP Trail in order to facilitate access to 2 properties which do not currently have frontage on a maintained road. And whereas this section of the KP is still owned by the municipality but is managed by the county. And whereas notice of the intent to declare surplus for the purposes of granting an easement has been circulated in accordance with the sale or disposition of property policy. Now therefore being resolved that council receive the report and draft bylaw prepared by the deputy clerk for information, and further that the bylaw be presented for approval later in the meeting. Discussion. Like we talked about last meeting. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Sorry, Mel. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Wan. Whereas section 88.18 of the Municipal Elections Act 1996 MEA states that municipalities and local boards shall establish rules and procedures with respect to the use of municipal resources during the election campaign period before May 1st of the election year. And whereas the CAO clerk has prepared a policy with respect to the use of corporate resources for information and approval by council. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the use of corporate resources policy for municipal elections as presented. Any discussion? Tom?
Thank you again, Your Worship. In this policy that I have in front of me, I think that, and I don't see it in here, but maybe it's there, I'll have to ask the clerk to clarify that. But I think in the past that we've been allowed to use the road size to put up signs. It's because it says the assets of the township, and I would include the road size. So I think we should add that in, and it's allowable, but not allowable in certain places such as the county municipal office, that sort of thing. And the other thing I don't see in there is that there's nothing to say that after the election is over, that after set, and I believe in policy in the province, that after 72 hours, you must have your signs removed. So I'd like to see those things added, because I don't see it. Am I right in saying that?
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey. Yes, this is more in regards to the use of corporate resources policy in regards to actual, using equipment, photocopying, those kinds of things. In the last election, under the campaigning, we did have a separate dealing with signs, which I can do a separate policy in regarding to signs. And that one, this is 1998, it did say election campaign or distribution, posting of election campaign advertising in municipally owned or leased facilities is not permitted. So it wasn't permitted previously. We didn't specify roadways in particular, but I think roadways would be fine. And then of course attached to this, if anyone was interested, back in 1988, 1998, we had the, whatever, 1 year, election sign policy, and this is under the authority of the Public Transportation and Highway Improvement Act. That's where you have certain visible from 400 meters within Highway 7. There's certain sections that you're not allowed to campaign as well, or put any kind of signs. So, I mean, we can do another sign policy similar to this, so that it would have that, and also in that, they do, under the province, talks about, so many hours that you have to have for 72 hours, that you have to remove all signs. So it's certainly up to,
I think we should incorporate that, of course, in our policy.
So is that policy not still in force, the 1991?
well, this one, no, it is not. Because we had it changed, because this was under section 88.3 of the municipal election act, which I have to double check that to see if it's still in there. This was new, that we had to do an actual corporate resources policy. So there's the two differences, but I think it can be covered in an election sign policy separately.
So the signs probably won't go up until after nomination day.
Most people, you can start putting up your signs as soon as you, it's got no earlier than filing of the nomination papers. So you can start to, as soon as you have filed, you can start, with your signs.
Might be nice to wait till June 2nd and 72 hours after that, when those signs come down.
Well, that's it, because I think there's been some confusion already we're talking with back and forth to deal with the political list of electors between the province and certainly ours, so it's a little concern. So, but no, I can certainly do an election policy separately.
So that can come next meeting for signs. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Motion moved by Sherry Wan, second by City Kelsey. Whereas Rogers Communication has identified a location for a communication tower and through its agent Forms Brothers Connect has undertaken the steps required to fulfill the innovation, science and economic development Canada procedures set out in circular CPC 2-0-03. And whereas the municipality as a land use authority has been consulted and informed of the process, and whereas the proponent is requesting that the municipality provide a letter of concurrence, and whereas the proponent has provided satisfactory evidence to confirm it has completed the noted process in said letter, now therefore be it resolved that council receive this report for information and authorize the mayor and CNO clerk to sign the letter of concurrence. And we have with us Sarah Duncan. If there are any questions, Sarah will be able to answer them for us. Does anyone have any questions on that motion? No questions, no comments? Sarah, you're getting off lucky. There's no questions on the motion, so we're going to vote. All those in favor? Unanimous yes to get towers up and get our mobility phone systems working better. Thank you. Committees and other reports. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey. That the next Trails Revitalization Committee meeting held March the 7th, 2022 be received for information. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Sherry Wan, that the minutes of the Rideau Valley Source Protection Authority meeting held October the 28th, 2021 be received for information. We're just a little behind in there. Meeting minutes, I guess. All those in favor? Carried. Oh, okay. That explains it. Oh, right, it's the, okay, good section, all right. So they're not behind. I take that back. Moved by Sherry White, seconded by Bill McDonald, that the minutes of the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance meeting held March the 10th, 2022 be received for information. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Moved Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that the minutes of the Oso Rec Committee meeting held on April 28th, 2022 be received for information. All those in favor? Carried. We are having a Canada Day celebration this year, I understand.
Yes, I'm excited to get started in the process of planning. Great to see what's happening.
There we go. Okay, moved by Sherry Wine, seconded by Bill McDonald, that the minutes of the Sharp Lake Farmers Market Association recent meeting of 2022 be received for information. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Correspondence. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Warren. The council received the following correspondence for information, and it's number 1 to 7. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. There are no dedications. Meetings. You're at bylaws. Moved by Bill 228, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 2002-125, 2002-125 as amended for the naming or renaming of public highways and private lanes be read a first, second, and third time and final pass this 10th day of May 2022. Bill, any question?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, for someone, I don't know who will answer, but when we change the name or come up with a new name, how are the emergency services notified of all of these changes? So that they can respond?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councilor McDonald, the policy sets out the responsibilities. I believe the Public Works Manager coordinates that through, they contact through the county to update the 911 information and the mapping, and they do the contact with Bell as well.
Through Madam Mayor, what's the time delay from the time we rename it until they actually get that?
That's a good question, and I don't want to answer that because I'm not 100% sure. I can check with Tyson and Charlene on that. They coordinate that. So I think there is a bit of a lag time, and I think that that the mapping will happen at a different time as the notifications and whatnot. So it's a process.
And then there's even more maps to get to Google Maps.
Yeah.
Sometimes it never gets there. Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Tom Dewey, second by Cindy Kelsey, that bylaw 2022-29, being a bylaw to declare lands legally described as part of lot 19 in section 3, OSO SRO, part of 20, FR 353570, Central Frontenac, surplus for the purpose of granting easement for access over part of the AP Trail, be read a first, second, and third time and final pass this 10th day of May 2022. Discussion, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas section 9.1 of our procedural bylaw 2017-42 contemplates that the second meeting in May be held in Mountain Road, the first meeting in July at Arden, and the second meeting in September in Piccadilly. And whereas council amended said procedural bylaw pursuant to bylaw 2022-16 to provide that meetings may be held via electronic participation rather than or in addition to in-person, and that these meetings be recorded and live streamed to allow for more transparency and easier access to our meetings. And whereas there is not the internet technology at the Mountain Road, Arden, or Piccadilly locations to support electronic participation and or live stream of the meetings. Now therefore it be resolved that the rules set out in section 9.1 of the procedural bylaw 2017-42 be suspended for 2022 regarding the alternative locations for the May 24th, July 12th, and September 13th, 2022 regular council meetings. And that said meetings be held at the Soldiers Memorial Hall, 1107 Garrett Street, Charlotte Lake, in order to offer the electronic participation and live streaming of said meetings. Discussion, Bill?
Madam Mayor, question here. Is there ever going to be an opportunity to actually be involved in live streaming from these other locations? If there is not, why are we postponing it for 1 year?
I can answer that, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald, is that we are going to be doing an update of the whole procedural bylaw. And at that point, we can maybe find out more information in regards to whether or not live streaming will become available. Because if not, we're going to do the update of the procedural bylaw in time for the certain the next council. That will be in there to say that it's all in one location. Okay?
And I think the difficulty is moving all of this equipment as well. And staff, it would probably take a day to move it all and get it set up. Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I take your point about the time that takes staff to put things together. On the other hand, I'd be curious to see what might be involved in order to make the 3 other locations suitable for this. I.e., what would it take to get them connected to the internet? What the cost would be for Wi-Fi, and the pros and the cons as well. I fully understand that, for the benefits, there may be some drawbacks. But if we had some sense as to what it would take to make those locations suitable for a meeting, both the good and the bad, that would be helpful, I think.
Maybe staff could work on that between now and the end of the year. It is a busy election year for these folks, after October anyway. Tom?
Thank you, Worship. As we're adding new towers and the climate changes within Central Frontenac, we could look at these locations down the road. Might be in 2 years, we might be able to service every one, but I think it depends on the tower locations and how fast these things are up and running.
Isn't the government promising by 2025 we'll all be ready to go?
Yeah.
That's within the next term, Bill.
I would like to invite the Army to come here. They'll provide us with a meal, and they can bring the meal.
Okay.
There.
Any other questions or comments on this motion? All those in favor? Carried. Things don't always get easier, they sometimes get more complicated. Okay. Are there any notice of motions? Any bit of notice of motions? Any new or other business?
Okay, I'll do that.
Did we?
That's the amendment to the procedural.
Oh, okay. Now we have a motion to get into closed session, so moved by City Council, seconded by Bill McDonald, that council will get into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss a 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board to rate. All those in favor? Carried.